Welcome. This is the November 26th Jalen Zones production user call. We have Igor, Jan, Dan, and myself, Michael, and heads up, FreeBSD 14.2 should be here in a week or so on December 3rd. And I never thought to see what the default ACLs are on a FreeBSD system, and this was a 13.3 system, and that's what you get. I worked on various ACLs till about 3 in the morning. Don't ask me why. And I also learned a lot about HPE firmware. Ask me anything, it's something. Dan, it sounds like you have
Should talk to your
expanded.
therapist.
Exactly. Yes, but if it's an HPE therapist, they will send you to sales and ask for an entitlement, which means, hey, give us a bunch of money for often something you already own. There is my soapboxing. Dan, it sounds like you've expanded your syslog usage. What was the motivation?
Uh, I was having a periodic script not run, and I knew it wasn't running because Nagios was telling me that this host had not checked in. Basically, it's a script that sends the list of packages installed on this host to Sam Drecker. So I went on the host and ran the script, and it checked in. And that happened for a couple of days, and I wasn't able to figure out why. And then yesterday, I looked at the host and saw, oh, there's nothing in Vlog messages, nothing since the 20th. So I saw that syslog wasn't running. So I started syslog, but that still didn't explain why the script wasn't running, and I haven't figured that part out yet. But then I decided, well, as long as I'm checking to see that syslog is running, let me check to make sure cron is running. And as soon as they implemented that, I found out cron was not running on this jail.
Oh,
And that's
okay.
why periodic was not being started, because cron wasn't running. So now I extended that check to all my hosts and jails, not because these things stop running very often, but when they do, they're silent and they have follow-on effects. So
Do you think
20
that
years of
was, go
monitor,
ahead. Go
20
ahead.
years of monitoring, I've never monitored this stuff. Do I think this was
So,
you're about to ask me a question?
yeah, do you think cron died on you or it was never somehow initially set up and working correctly?
I think it I think it died because this host wound up being very busy trying to start things.
I see.
Uh,
So,
Sometimes when I upgrade the software on it, the old software gets confused and keeps running, and the new software doesn't. So it just starts going and logging and filling stuff up. So I think it was an own goal. I don't think it was a problem with the demons in question, but now I know.
what hook did you end up with to monitor cron and syslog with a tool?
Uh, I created, I added something into Nagios that just looks at the PID for that daemon and sees whether or not it's running.
Okay.
So it's not doing anything more than that. It just says, is this PID still running? Which is good enough for what I need.
How does it initially associate the PID with the daemon? Because they're
Oh,
randomized, are they not?
no, yeah, but it's in a file. Var
Okay.
run
Oh,
syslog d dot
named by it.
PID.
Got it. Got it. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it.
And
Cool.
yeah.
And
So
like you
now I
said,
have
okay,
68 checks like that.
first time. And
Now,
Jan, you had a question about a dead man pushover switch?
Yeah, Dan, you recommended using pushover, so I played with it and found it quite useful. But kind of the problem is it only tells you something if you are in a position to send the notification. So I was wondering what you're using as a liveness check, um, so that you get an alert when something stops responding instead of when something decides to send a notification.
you mean
Do you do that with
what
Nagios or LibreNMS
in
or?
the past I've had Nagia's script, which will send an email to a specific email address and then check to see whether or not it's received. And it does that through IMAP. That's about the closest thing I have to a yes, this service is acting correctly. I have other checks which see whether or not HTTP or HTTPS ports are active. But I don't have anything that sends out an alert to say, yes, the alerts are still working on pushover. But that could be done because you can send a pushover notification to a specific email address that you decide upon. And if that's not received, you know that something's wrong.
Right.
You can create different addresses like that on pushover and just send to it and see whether or not it's received.
Yeah.
Any questions for Dan?
That's all in theory. I'm pretty sure it'll work because that's similar to the tests I did before.
Cool.
Yeah, and just see whether or not it's in the mailbox.
Do you pass syslog data between servers or purely over email between systems? Like
The
you have a socket or
syslog
something
stuff.
between them?
No, the syslog stuff stays on the host.
Got it.
I used to do log aggregation in a central location,
That's my
but I don't
question.
do that anymore.
What broke that view of the world?
Elasticsearch. I started to try Graylog again instead, but I ran into blocks. If you search my Twitter handle on Graylog, you'll see what happened. And I've never gotten back into it again. Instead of log aggregation, I've been running for over 24 years now, I'm gonna guess, a tool called security/log check. And it's something handled by the Debian project. And it scans your logs on an hourly basis and sends you stuff that is outside the bounds of what you said you want to ignore.
So anomalies, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
That's a great word for this situation.
Outliers. There was a great plug talk on monitoring, and it's like, wait, I'm going to slay this dragon, find that anomaly, that unicorn, and it's like, okay, watching. Oh, I found it, and it was like Monit kicking in to do the actual monitoring. So it's like the monitoring tool was the anomaly. So
yeah.
Cool. Okay. Any other logging insights? It's a perfectly valid topic that we absolutely not suing using, that we've neglected over the years. I love it.
Just today, I extended the logging on my Postgres server in the basement from 7 days to 21 days because I discovered the logs are only taking about 500 meg.
That's not tiny, but okay. Oh, actually, yeah, in big modern world, that's pretty tiny. I love it. Love it. Okay.
Yeah, when people start throwing crap into big data solutions instead of accepting that half a gig is just easily grabbable within seconds.
Yep.
So your big ass database is probably slower than the linear search if you use something like with grep. Plain text, despite being primitive, scales surprisingly far.
So are your logs simply plain text on LZ4 and everyone's happy? Or are they, I don't know, compressed on the fly or anything other than LZ4 and ZFS? Did I successfully unmute? Yes. Anyway.
You did, Dan didn't, I assume?
Correct. Well, he probably had a call come in or something. Or a fire truck go by. Well, the postman. Well, cool. Logging.
Sorry about
no
that.
worries at
There was
all.
a passing dog.
No worries at all. Oh, hello, doggy. Then my simple question is, are you storing logs in plain text on ZFS and LZ4 or anything else special there? Who's a good dog?
I'm sorry, could you ask that again?
Are you simply storing your logs as plain text on, say, LZ4 compressed ZFS data sets, or are they, I don't know, in any way a compressed file on the file system?
No, I've modified syslog.conf to not do any compression, and I
Got it.
let, pardon, I have a bad cough. I
No
let
worries.
ZFS do that compression for me because it's much easier to use less or more rather than uncompress the log.
Hmm. Cool. That's the question I didn't want to assume.
In
Oh,
fact, and I also tried to get the project to provide a way to specify that overall. Don't compress these logs, but that sort of got started and then paused.
understood.
Yeah,
Okay.
it would be neat if new syslog had a flag to, which means only compress if a file system is uncompressed. So that if you put it on a compressed CFS file system for a var log, it will just not bother doing the gzip or bzip2 compression because for log files it's normally not worth doing and it's just annoying to deal with, and you have to go over every system and remove the dash J from the default syslog rotation.
Jan, if you could go into the review and make that comment, that's one of the best answers I've seen
Could you post a
because then you
review?
Which
can,
review?
Do you have a link handy?
there is a code review on.
And how would it sniff for a compressing file system? Because that's transparent to the user and daemon and service and all that. Just
I mean, if it's new syslog, it could just check that if for each base directory containing log files with using LSVFS,
yeah,
which file system it's mounted on, and then check the mount flags and kind of infer it, which would be the dirty way to do it.
yeah,
But it would also be the way which would just work for all supported file systems. It's
true.
not like the base system will gain new file systems overnight without an update to a base system.
Hmm.
So yeah, if you update the base system, you can update the check to be smarter for other
Hmm.
compressed file systems. And if you store your var log on a fuse file system, which the script doesn't know about, okay, maybe then it does the wrong thing. But not really worse off than
Yeah.
before.
So Dan, I'll race you to a search of reviews.freebsd and syslog. Come on, syslog. No, I don't want closed reviews. Do you remember a keyword from that review? I'm trying compression, allow limiting size.
New syslog?
That's a good one. It's not
Yeah, new
syslog ng.
syslog. Yeah, new, what am I looking at? New syslog, just new syslog.
Okay,
That's what I've been looking for, new
perfect.
syslog. And I found one of them. I'm just having trouble controlling my laptop at the moment.
I hear you. The struggle is real.
Multiple screens,
Yeah.
and they're not positioned where they should be. Oh, here we go.
Disable compression by default. 43169 maybe.
43169.
And
Yeah, that's
Okay,
the one.
cool. Boom. Copy. Copy link address. I'll put it in the
And there are
chat
a couple of
for.
others that go after that.
Okay, I know that they
I
linked
think
in
it
it
was
as one
abandoned.
does.
I think it was abandoned for some reasons. You have to. There are other commits that were done for this,
Hmm.
but you have to sort of link them together to find out what's going on.
Okay.
Someone senior came through and said basically this is a bad idea.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I like what Jan said was never mentioned. And I think that would be a nice flag that we could add, and it would be useful to a lot of people because really, why compress twice?
So the other
Because when
thing
you want
which
to go
would
and
be
grep, you then have to uncompress. Go ahead.
what you could do to make it easier to kind of retrofit existing systems so that you get more use out of it would be to add a flag to the new syslog command to ignore compression on compressed file systems.
Yes. Yep.
Um,
I think that's a good compromise.
so that it's one setting in your periodic conf and you're golden, and that you can write with syslog so that you can easily automate. And then we can argue whether or not to, in a release or one or two or three, to flip the default if
So
people
what
are
setting in
care so
rc.conf
much.
to achieve
Because
that?
sorry,
What setting in rc.conf to achieve that?
not in rc.conf,
Oh, I
in
heard
periodic.conf.
periodic. Thanks. Sorry. Yep. Thank you. And
Really? Periodic.conf has new syslog stuff.
No, it has the uh, it has the block quotate stuff, doesn't it? Oh wait, how does new syslog
Oh,
get run?
yes.
Doesn't it get run through the
Yeah.
hourly
Yeah. It's
mechanism?
new syslog. New syslog is launched from crontab.
Yeah, yeah, but let me double check that on a system where I didn't mess with the default. What is etc tab? So how does no new syslog is run directly from the cron tab? It does not go through the indirection of the hourly periodic script. That is something I
Yeah.
must have done on my home system a while ago, just for yeah.
Okay.
I shouldn't assume that my lab system is representative of a clean upstream.
Jan.
But
Yes, of all people. In the best possible way.
but yeah, it would be one flag to add to your etc cron tab in that case.
Hmm. Which is, hey,
And
sniff for the file system mount
yeah,
type
exactly.
parameters.
You could even make it not smart so that you could just wait. Um, there is already a flag, see none. Instruct new syslog to use the specified compression algorithm, then a file is flagged for compression. The default method is legacy, which interprets the J, X, Y, and Z flags. This default setting can be overridden with C none, which causes new syslog to ignore all compression flags. So we already have a flag to new syslog to make it
I wonder if that came
ignore that.
in from the stuff.
You know, I've never bothered with reading that in ages. So I think the last time I read the new syslog man page, that flag did not exist, and I haven't seen it in release
Which
notes.
flag is
So
that?
dash
Which flag
C,
is that? Dash C, it's not
lowercase
specified.
Caesar.
And this is on new syslog
Yes.
or new syslog?
I just checked on a FreeBSD 15 current. So let me
Oh,
check
well,
online if
no, it's
that's
not
in
in 14
14.
yet. No, it's not in 14.
Okay, that
Might be in
explains
14.
why I haven't read any new syslog. Let's see.
I wonder if that is related to the commits that I've seen regarding this
Yeah,
thing.
it's new. It's not in 14.1.
Well, I'll be looking forward to that. It means I can revert my new syslog.conf files to the default settings.
Yeah, I
I
have a really
keep going in and
nasty
removing all the J.
find and SED in place hack to patch all the default new syslog configs in place with find and SED by just assuming that I know the defaults and so that the regex works. But,
So
so yeah.
So Jan, I SSH'd into a system. What sniff are you suggesting to determine not only ZFS, but also ZFS with compression enabled?
If you know where it's ZFS, you could just do a ZFS get on the mount point.
Well, so that sounds like outside the scope of syslog's upstream goodies, does it not?
Um,
Or would it
yes,
be FreeBSD
but if we
specific?
can just instead have one setting to one option to add to the new syslog invocation to make it do the same thing.
So
I mean,
intelligently
having it
or
auto
manually, you
detect
say no
with a bit of
compression.
magic would be nice, but
Yeah,
yeah.
because I'm all for magic, but it sounds a bit contrived and maybe intrusive into the system,
Yeah,
going
that's a
outside its
problem
normal
that
scope.
it's getting into quite opinionated default in
Yes,
this case.
exactly.
And it can basically now, and as nice and useful as I think it is a bit of a polar violation
Mm.
to have the name of your rotated log files depend on the compression setting of your var log file system. Uh, yeah,
And people may want, people have countless motivations. Plus, they might be using the no compression already. So changing the defaults can scare the old people. So it's a
now
journey.
the
Keep that review alive, I suppose, and just look at it from different approaches because
but
I'm sure there's
we
an
already
answer,
have,
but we
in my opinion, a good enough solution in
okay.
15 coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know if it made it into 14.2, if it was MFC, so maybe the problem goes away in a week or two
Okay.
for
Got
the,
it.
on the
Yes.
bleeding edge.
Love it.
I have the code review for the other for when it was committed. I'll put it in chat.
Oh, please do. Yeah.
Great.
And so which specifically in 15 is it the dash C or a different new feature? I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's the dash lowercase c,
Got it.
and that would go in. I'm sure either in cron or in rc.conf. I'm not sure where the flags go,
Got it.
but yeah, I'll be using that.
Woohoo. Okay.
I did
Well,
I
oops.
didn't see anything in that review about an MFC.
Okay. Ah, okay. Come on, computer. Oh,
Yep. It hasn't made it into 14.2 RC1.
hmm.
It hasn't.
No, I just tested
Uh,
on a little
there was
jail,
a there was
so
a question about MFC after 1 week. The commit message says MFC after 1 week, but it didn't happen.
didn't happen, and good luck trying to convince
For RC2,
release
this is not
engineering to
Bcache
Well,
FS.
when will 15 come out?
Yes. Yes, it will.
one day.
No, no, no.
We have no idea.
14
We're
points.
being
What?
snarky
What?
on
No, no,
14.3, the
no.
December 3rd, hopefully.
No, it won't go there either. It'll be in
Right.
15, won't it?
Exactly. So it'll be a wait. We don't
14.3.
know.
Yeah.
It's in 15 right now, so
Okay.
it's not going to make it into 14.2.
That got
No.
Jin. He's
You may get an
attention.
MFC into 14.3.
Okay.
So what's the release schedule for 15? But
While you
it's
look
way,
that
way
up,
away.
are we done with logging and we move on to Igor's
Yes.
jail metadata update?
Yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay. Thank you for your patience, Igor. I hope you learned something awesome about syslog. I sure did. Uh, Tell us more about jail metadata.
Um, well, there is a little update that yesterday the review on the fabricator was updated, the patch itself. So it looks like we really have an agreement that we need two spaces for this metadata. One is for external usage, like I'm tagging jails, but I don't want them to see my tags or my meta information. And the
Yeah.
second space is for jail itself, so jail can read it through a syslog. It's just read-only way for a jail to get this information. And also we have in to do to add some extra security by default. So we plan to limit the data we can put in these buffers to some alphanumeric something subset of characters. So with the idea that in the future we can extend this, maybe with some options, some configuration if it's required. So it's just keeping in mind that some shell scripts could use it or something like that, not to allow enter anything into these buffers, what may start exploding the things around. And the overall idea right now is to position this patch as something very simple, like the first steps, to have just some space, some buffer provided by the kernel, not to put much complexity on the kernel side. So original idea was to just annotate the things and not modify them after the jail creation, but as long as modification is not a big deal to introduce for some rare cases when some mistake was done, for example. So we have modification way for this two buffers. And as an analogy, we can think about Kubernetes and Docker world when we just annotating something for orchestration deals, or we provide some information like environment variables, which are basically set up on creation of a container, not modified later. So this is the current position of this patch. I guess we're going to discuss this on the Fabricator. So I guess we're going to have extra comments there.
There's a great discussion going on with a lot of people.
Yeah, so we see that we can start with the smallest simple, so let's say it for short, a KISS concept, and not to guess today what we need in the future, because of there are a lot of opinions how it could be extended, how it could be used. So this is how we see it right now. Yeah, something like that.
A minimum viable product.
Yeah, the key thing we're trying to pay attention is that we do not cut options for the future changes and extensions. So we keep it technically doable in the future to provide more interesting way to work with it. And even if we need a lot of modification stuff for that, or for example, like Jan mentioned, it's some notification of the changes and so on. So we see that it's possible to work on this, like the next future projects to extend it, for example.
Igor, I think it would be for most users enough to add one more setting, and that would be a host exclusive thread societl, which the jail can't see. So if you want to store, let's say, some kind of API token to an orchestrator, and so that if you have something like I don't know, an credentials for Nomad or Consul, they are on behalf specific to that jail, but to be executed on the trusted host. That you have a third, just simple plain text sysctl, which is only read and writable by the host's privileged users. So basically, you have to be root on the host to see it.
Right now, the Prison Zero, so-called Prison Zero, can actually modify both buffers and work with both buffers, external and internal. And internal is just for the jail itself. So jail can absorb this information, take it for it needs. So this is what you mean?
No, if I understood the patch correctly, the jail can read both buffers.
No, only internal one. So now we split it.
So the external one is no longer readable by the jail.
Yeah.
And there's no one which is writable by the jail, right?
Yeah, jail cannot write to these buffers. Only two sub jails. So the same idea goes down through the hierarchy.
I think all of the complexity I recommended, while it would be in a way needed, isn't really needed, because we have all that fine granular access control in the file system. So if you need that level of flexibility, maybe it's better to just create a tempfs and nullfs mount directories around so that you put it in the file system namespace, even if you don't want to persist it to disk, and just have a companion tempfs or nullfs depending on if you want to override the writability, so that you just keep it simple. What I dislike about this one sysctl per access control scheme is that everyone is now closely coupled to that writer. So if you have something like Podman writing to it, now everything is closely tied to how Podman lets them store data there. So it's now upon the jail manager slash, or in the OCI context, the runtime, to expose some mechanism to write metadata and query metadata. And I don't think we want the complexity of something like JSON query and JSON patch mailing the kernel, because that would be insane, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just so that you can share a single nested object graph. And if you had a flat list of key value pairs, basically every writer could just lay claim to its share of the key namespace. So everything would, for example, be, if you have a ZFS helper, you would call it whatever, similar to ZFS user property. You would use domain colon project, then equals some key value, so that you would avoid key collisions. But I get it that, yeah, using sysctls as a kind of key value store for arbitrary keys is annoying and a lot of added complexity compared to the size of the patch.
Okay. Is this ready for testing? Or are you still changing direction on it?
The previous version and current version are usable, so I'm trying to keep it such way. So I even updated the tests. I mean, automated tests
Yep.
to support this meta ext and meta internal. And regarding the OCI, I heard that Doc mentioned that actually they don't need it right now, this meta thing we do, because of they already do annotation, or how they call it, another way. So it's not required for the OCI
I
work
think they
right
put
now.
it somewhere under var1.
Yeah, I don't know details right now, but I heard that actually there is no much dependency on this meta thing. Because of course we wanted to see whether we can help OCI side.
Yeah.
But we found the information. Actually, it means that we have the easier time for that. And regarding the separate, or let's say, writers in parallel, I see that in future it can be implemented technically, but of course it means that extra complexity is going to be on the kernel side to orchestrate, to serialize this writing. But it's doable, and as I mentioned it in one of my recent comments, it can be done, for example, like through the syslog, but actually there are a lot of limitations as for me to work through the syslog. Actually, syslog were not meant for such things, for very dynamic things, and they are not actually per jail and so on. So there are many interesting questions to the syslog subsystem itself. So maybe it will need some upgrading to support such scenarios. So easy way I see currently, it's not like put on the table to discuss it, just quick ideas from my head that probably some separate program like JText could be used for this better user experience to work with this buffer when it can handle it with a specific structure, like maybe a key value separated by a new line, something like that. So it could provide better way not to play with the usual Unix stuff like cut, grep, and so on. So it could ease the things, but it could use the same buffer in the kernel. and we could add complexity on the kernel side to serialize the work with that. So one process can just ask, please add this key value to whatever you already have. Another process says in the parallel, please remove this key from whatever you have, and the kernel could serialize these things. I have the vision that it's possible in the future to implement such things, like extra helpers to work with this buffer space we have today, for example. And just as I said, the current positioning of the patch means to postpone those decisions. Maybe we can miss something. Maybe it's better to have some real production needs,
Sure.
not to create the interface for the future, and when we hit that future it says sorry, interface doesn't fit much our
Sure.
needs or something like that.
Okay.
So
Any questions for, oh, go ahead.
the sysctl underscore add underscore OID function in the kernel takes a syscall handler callback, which can do arbitrary things on the old and the new value. So you could implement a special sysctl similar to what the Beehive VMM device does, where writing to it is not directly updating the value, but basically you're sending a command in, so that you would have something like opcode space key new line value or something, which would be easy enough to pass in the kernel, that you probably wouldn't get too much flack for doing it like that. But it looks like I'm just overcomplicating things, and just having one host key and one jail readable key is enough to satisfy what Dave and most others need. And others have the complicated requirements, just use a tempfs and nullfs to share it via the file system namespace.
Cool. Anything else at this time?
I guess that's all from my side.
Very cool. Keep up the good work. Jan, it sounded like you have a few updates on your science projects.
Yes, so I've reached a point where I'm happy with the ZFS dataset creation for the thick jails, so that I can now quickly provision and recover to a safe state if my snapshot is for some reason not created or destroyed, that it then will roll back to the add empty snapshot, double check that the add empty snapshot is really empty, and then only then will it do a package-based installation with dash dash rootdir, because dash dash rootdir as an argument to package is not a secure sandbox. It's only the package manager remembering to always prefix paths. But if you had malicious triggers in packages on install or destroy, installation or upgrade, those would run basically unrestricted. But don't worry, they get the rootdir as an environment variable, so that they can apply it or as an argument or both, but they're not restricted in any way. So using dash dash rootdir is really a sensitive operation. And the other way to do it would be to use the package static binary with a few more files on the copied in, so that it could run something. It would need definitely the resolve conf, so that it could fetch. And then you could use it to run even on an empty file system, because package static can change root and even jail itself, so that you can run the host package static command inside the jail before it sees the dangerous files. That may actually be a good solution, but it requires using the static binary. Yeah.
Should package throw a jail transparently into the root dir usage for the reasons you outlined?
Huh?
Should package on installation when you use root dir, which I certainly use for like boot environments, etc., should that be performing
But
a chroot for safety for the reasons you
no,
mentioned?
it can't,
It can't. Okay.
because but the point it does that there is no basically to run the command to run it, it needs
Yeah.
basically the change root environment or the jail environment to contain a runnable package command.
Okay.
Because of that reason, the way it's implemented, you can't do it like that. Um, if you don't have the shared libraries and so on and the to run package, because there is not even a libc in your MTJ before base system installation, you can't run a dynamically linked binary which isn't installed either.
Yeah. Okay.
But just putting the statically linked binary somewhere should work, and then getting rid of it later. Mm. So that you could always use a jail, but that means that the provisioning now moves into kind of the fixed jails exec.start. And then you would have to do this snapshotting in the fixed jails exec.poststart, which would work, but would be a bit of a re-architect. As long as I trust the repository of the PkgBase packages, I don't have an issue with what I have right now. So that it works, yeah.
Okay. Any other updates from you, Jan?
Yeah, I'm working on how to quickly deal with clone fin jails and to assemble those. And it takes a bit of doing with basically learning Lua to script it in a CFS channel program, but that is possible and is coming along. It just takes time to implement, but it's definitely possible, and yeah. And that would
Okay.
mean that I can then take one basically fig jail per patch level of the base system I want, and configuration of the base system for things like do I want to subset it, or do I want to have a full one, or both? Maybe I want to have a tiny one for normal production, and then I want a full one I can just replace for debugging purposes or for testing if some problem I'm encountering with my trimmed down jails is caused by trimming down the userland too much. Maybe something has a dependency on that man page for some reason, she omitted, or it requires, I don't know, you're trying to run Xmonad in a jail and it requires a complete compiler toolchain because it compiles its configuration from a domain specific language into a new executable every time it runs. Or something like Varnish may actually cause this issue, because what Varnish does is it takes its configuration, compiles it to C, then compiles that C code to optimized implementation of your rule set and dynamically loads the shared library. So basically, you have to have a base system compiler to change the Varnish configuration.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you remove the compiler, you can't run Varnish in your JS because it will just say, no, CC not found.
Okay. Any other
So yeah,
updates? Okay.
and
Then ever so briefly, we seem to have a chicken and egg situation with PkgBase insofar as it's fundamentally available, but it's not yet institutionalized in the installer or otherwise. I somewhat have a pressing need to use it for jails and a host, be it creating a new boot environment. Do you think any two system administrators would be able to agree on a canonical way to set up a package-based FreeBSD host, or is that just crazy
I think
talk?
so.
How far scripted do you have that? I'm thinking.
I have it fully scripted for jails. The question is, how much do you want to basically preserve your configuration? Because the easiest way to do is to basically run it, especially if you have a boot environment in a jail with change flags allowed, so
Yeah.
that it can do everything it has to. You will then basically do a package -j on that jail, and the BECTL command can do it, and then you just get basically move all the if you really want to just convert a system and you know that you ran the official stuff and didn't compile base yourself and it installed it from source,
Sure,
but you
sure.
just
Yep.
use FreeBSD update or
Yep.
something, and you can just move all the .package save files back into place, and your system is successfully converted. And because you did the conversion in a boot environment, you avoided ever going through dangerous states with your active boot environment, because only when the conversion is finished do you switch the boot environment and reboot.
Mm-hmm.
That's safe. The hacky way would be to put everything in /etc in a Git repository and just Git revert afterward.
Right.
And then if you don't want to keep the history, you can just remove the .git directory afterward.
Yep.
But if you lose your root shell while doing so, you're locked out, because it means that you have basically run the equivalent of make distribution.
Right.
Um,
Igor or Dan, are you using PkgBase in any way yet?
so if you don't have boot
No,
environments,
I'm not at
there
all.
is no totally safe way unless you have some other mechanism like the old-fashioned nano BSD style active passive configuration.
Right. Is make
Make
distribution
distribution is
required, or is
not
that
fun to run
included?
on a running system.
Is it included in the PkgBase files, or do you have to run it
But
after they're expanded?
so run what?
So make distribution sets up some
Make distribution is
infrastructure.
something really destructive. Don't do it.
Yeah, okay.
It would basically override your /etc with the defaults.
Yes, okay. And so on a package-based system, that is
And doing the
implicit in the
package-based
packages.
conversion
Is there a base
is pretty
package that
similar.
includes it? Is there an
The
equivalent to the
problem
make
is that
distribution files in a package-based system, like base.package, kind of like
your
Red Hat had?
question is the problem. The
Okay, thank
question does
you.
not make sense.
Okay, well,
And there
we
is
have
no such
default
thing
files, so
you're
there are no
asking for.
defaults in a package-based system.
The package you asked about, which contains it, does not exist and should not exist.
Okay.
The problem is during package register, when it installs and then registers them, it finds, oh, there are a few files in /etc which are config files, and those are modified, so it moves them out of the way into a .package save file,
Yep.
and then installs the one from the package in place.
Okay.
And that's the point. So your config files aren't lost, but they're not in a place where the commands will find them. And so, yes, you have now a master.parscd.package save with all your user information in it.
Mm-hmm.
And the same for the database files. So you could just move them back, but the system, if you reboot now or try to log in, will say, sorry, I can't let you in because root has no password, so SSH is disabled, and I don't know your normal user either. And the only sane way to easily convert a production system is through a boot environment.
Mm-hmm.
You would create a boot environment, then you can either reboot into that boot environment and convert the default environment while running the other one and making sure that it would reboot into the recovery one, let's call it, if something goes wrong. Or you can, if you're willing to have your boot environment be changed afterwards so that it has a different name and it's no longer called default, but let's say package base,
boot environment
then
hygiene.
you would create that first with BECTL create. Then you would do a BECTL jail and give it the options to basically set IPv4 and IPv6 to inherit so that the jail has full network access. And it has already a valid etcrc conf because it was just created off your running system. So you don't have to copy the resolve conf in. So now you can just set it the allow.ch flags to true so that the jail can update its libc and other files normally protected. You basically install all of the base system repository, and when you're done, you find any file with a .pkg save suffix and move it back to its base name without the suffix.
Yep.
So basically overwrite all the files which just got installed with what was already there.
Oh,
And then it will say, okay, it's fine. And most of the files are just bit for bit identical.
cool.
You could also do first an MD5 and not do a CP between the two files and delete the PkgBase file if it is bitwise identical. And only if it is not bitwise identical, then you would move it back. That would also be fine.
Love it. Ship it. Anything else? I appreciate that. Those ideas. Well, I suspect
Well,
a bunch of
one
us
more
need to get
thing
going.
is
Yes,
that I
sir.
have a little hyperscript
Yes.
written.
Ooh, do tell.
Um,
Specific to PkgBase.
yes.
Oh,
It's only a rough little tool, and it is, of course, too long to fit
hmm.
into the chat box.
Is it on a gist as per tradition?
We'll go there next. I just have to set it up. Great. This one works for me to keep my lab system running 50 current up to date.
Nice. Okay, I will drop that.
It also makes sure to create a boot environment of your old state.
Mm-hmm.
If the
Quickie.
installation gets canceled, then yeah, you have to get rid of the boot environment manually. It's not dangerous, but there are cases where it will refuse to make progress and just fail without destroying anything.
Let's take a look. Damn it.
And assuming your jail is allowed to update files with change flags, then you can use it inside the jail. So first, what I'm doing is, okay, I'm saying that I'm using a well-known package which gets updated every time because it contains the FreeBSD version command.
Mm.
So the script knows that the best place to get the version of the whole base system is the FreeBSD runtime package, because the FreeBSD version command is in that package, which means that it is the one which has to be updated every time there is a new patch. Then I find out which repository that was installed from. That is on line 7.
Yep.
Then in the next one, okay, I instruct the package manager to update that repository and ignore the OS version, so that if you're on FreeBSD current and the ABI got bumped, it will not refuse to update the package repository because it's newer than the host system, because I want to upgrade the host system after all.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Next, run package version to find out which packages are newer or potentially downgraded, but that's quite unlikely that the official repositories will have that. Basically, I'm looking for any package which is inside the system, which is already installed, is inside the repository, and is not in sync with what's in the repository. So the version is not equal to between what is installed and what is in the repository. And if that set is empty, I'm happy. There's nothing to update. Otherwise, I'd fetch all of these packages ahead of time. Then I look if there's a .git directory in /etc, and if so, I say, please don't do it with a dirty .git. So please commit your stuff before you update it, so that the version is correct, the one in your version control system. Then I take the old version as a name for a boot environment to create. If that cannot be done, it aborts because, yeah, okay, that could be improved. And the last step is to, without updating the repository again, install the packages which have been already fetched.
And you leave it to the user and reader to
reboot.
set the boot environment with it. You leave it to
This
the
is for
administrator to
updating
set
a
the boot
system
FS.
which is.
Yes, I know, but the
Sorry.
boot FS entry on the pool gets manually updated rather than something automatic
No,
in these
it does
steps.
not get updated because it updates the currently active boot environment. It creates one with a snapshot of the state before the update so that you can go back.
Okay, cool.
It does not create a new one, update that, and then expect the user to switch the active one. Instead, it takes as a backup a snapshot, or more correctly, a clone of a snapshot.
Yep.
So
Cool.
that you can, if it does not work, you can go back via the bootloader.
Great. Anything else at this time? I wish those who celebrate a happy Thanksgiving, but that might be Dan on this call. I'm not sure they have that elsewhere, being not here. Let's see, we are already into December. I am not ready for that. And I wish you well at 11:08. Dan, you with us? Do you want to give us a nice like and subscribe?
Takes
No
me
worries.
so long to find the mute button.
I hear you.
Like and subscribe, please.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.